What were you going to say?
We're just going to do our intro and then do this after the intro?
Yeah, if that's okay with you.
Fantastic. I just wasn't sure where we were going there.
Okay, sounds
just
good.
Check in.
I mean, it's always good to check in.
Oh, we have to clap?
Oh, that's right, we do.
La 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 la.
Second clap, just in case. It helps to sync the audio and the video together.
Okay, got it. Do some talking.
Yes, and then you can watch the little mouth and make sure that the words match the mouth. It's a whole thing.
Okay, I love it.
It's a process.
Yeah.
Can I get anybody anything before we officially start?
I'm good.
I'm
ready too.
Okay. All right. Beautiful. Well then, hi, beautiful humans. I'm Kayla.
And I'm Ashley. Welcome to Your Soul Welcome,
a podcast of belonging for humans exploring their deepest hearts. Yeah.
Love it.
Before we cue the intro, we will introduce our guest.
Yay! Today we have Angie Hansen with us. Angie Hansen is the founder of Butterflies and Halos, a greeting card company that specializes in cards that speak hope into the grieving heart. She and her cards aim to help friends help their friends in navigating the unknown inside the valleys and spirals of grief. And over the course of a few years, Angie lost her son, her husband, and her brother, and has also been grieving the loss of her sister-in-law. She's here with us today as we all talk about how we love ourselves through grief.
Yes. Well, thanks for having me, ladies.
Of course. Thanks for being here.
Yes.
Because I feel like grief is a heavy ass topic. And
gosh.
Learning that it's okay to process grief in your own way, I think is such a beautiful lesson for us to be learning.
Yes.
So thank you very much for being here. And before we dive straight into how we, what did I title the episode?
Love ourselves through grief.
Yes. How do we love ourselves through grief? We will, cue the intro.
Cue that beautiful intro music.
Right now.
Do-do-do-do-do.
Doodly-dee-doot.
Love it.
Okay, beautiful. So then, sweet Angie, I know that you speak a lot about grief and you have very strong opinions about it. So we've got a couple questions for you, but also I'd love to throw it to you in case you just have something you want to say right out of the gate.
Yes. Well, the biggest thing in life I've learned through all my tremendous losses is that I am just trying to help friends navigate through the grief process. And whatever part of journey you're on, how can we show up for our friends? And how can we show up by not fixing them, but just being there for them and helping them navigate through their losses, whatever loss that is. So that's kind of where I'm trying to just change the narrative, honestly.
I think that's so beautiful because so much of the human brain can be keyed into problem solving, and grief isn't a thing that needs fixed. It's not a problem to be solved. No. It is a beautiful,
heartbreaking experience.
Yes, to be felt through.
Yes.
And so I so appreciate that leading message.
Yes, because we all experience loss in different forms, whether it's a job loss or it's a cancer diagnosis or any illness diagnosis, a pet loss. Any of those, grief is not death only. Grief is in all forms. And we all need people to show up for us and help us navigate through those losses and, whatever aspect that looks like. So,
yeah, absolutely. I experienced a lot of grief surrounding my dad who had a stroke 7 years ago. He's still with us. So it was not a death, but he's certainly not the same guy.
Exactly.
Right.
Yeah.
So-
Yeah. I mean, he lost his ability to do certain things, I'm assuming,
Mhm.
and you guys all had to change, how you navigate around him.
Yes. Like my mom is his full-time caregiver now, which is so much.
It is.
And I feel like the topic of grief, especially for caregivers,
Right.
is a real sensitive and very deep.
It really
Deep
is.
subject.
Yes. And we have to show up for everybody. And I guess, my question would be for you, did you have a lot of friends show up for you after your dad's stroke?
Oh my God, yes. My dad's stroke is what taught me to ask for help, because I had so many people so sweetly offering that I learned a really beautiful lesson in how to receive that offer and turn it into something happening, rather than just saying like, I'm fine.
Yeah.
Thanks for asking. Leave me alone. Like,
Right.
I was not fine. And I was so not fine that I learned how to ask for help.
That's
Exactly,
beautiful.
yes.
That's
Yeah.
so beautiful.
Yes. I feel like a lot of people, and I've done that over the years, is my go-to word is fine. I'm fine. I'm
Mhm.
fine.
Yes.
I'm fine, because I guess I found myself in the situation where it's like, wherever group or people I was surrounded by, did I know them well enough? Did they know my stories? Did they want to know about my stories? And it's just like, oh, I'm fine, and I would always kind of just be the person silently sitting in the back, because
Mhm.
how do you tell someone maybe that you just met that, oh yeah, I've lost my son and my husband and my brother and my sister-in-law, it's just
Right.
because then people start backing away because they
Right.
don't know how to deal and
Right.
they don't know
Yes.
what to say.
Right.
And I get that, but that's what we're trying to change. Let's talk
Right.
about grief.
Mhm.
Yes.
And I feel like where I first kind of started being able to talk to people about grief is just by saying, I don't know what I'm supposed to be saying to you right now.
Yes.
Mhm.
Like, I don't know what to say, and I love you. Like,
Yes,
that's
exactly. And those
Yes.
are perfect. And that's perfect. That's
Yes.
perfect. And, just that's where we've been in a society where I think it's generational, where prior, like our parents, for example, and then their families, they just didn't talk about grief. It was just kind of a
Right.
hush hush subject,
Right.
And so that's where nowadays with social media and there's so much information out there, people are starting to open up and talk about it. We see more
Right.
posts on social media about grief and any losses and different things like that. But yeah, just being there is the number one thing I always tell people. And then just saying, I don't know what to do.
Mhm.
Mhm.
And that's how I started my cards, because
Yeah.
my very first card that I came up with was, I don't know what to say. Let's go eat one of those damn casseroles.
Yes.
Because
Oh,
what
I
happens
love
when someone
that.
dies, you get 1,000 casseroles, and it's
Right.
just like, well, I'm not hungry,
Right.
somebody just died. I don't want to eat, but
Right.
so that's, if a friend gave that to me, because
Right.
I'm not going to give my friend a card that says with deepest sympathy or, oh,
Right.
I'm so sorry for your loss, because that's not what I would give my best friend if
Right.
her spouse
Right.
dies,
Right. Right.
I'd say, let's go eat one of those damn casseroles.
Right.
Yeah.
Yeah.
And then in that moment, no matter where they're at, that they're going to probably smile a little.
Right.
Mhm.
Yeah.
And sometimes it can be so mood changing or so heart opening in those times where you're so tempted to like wall yourself off, just to have a friend show up with coffee.
Yeah.
Yes.
Like when my dad had his stroke, my best friend got us all coffees and drove it to the hospital, and she didn't know what to say, but she was present.
Yes.
And I think that's
Yeah.
so beautiful.
Yes.
Yes.
And I took that lesson. And when my friend's mom died, like I brought her a plant. I was like, I don't know if you want to see me right now. I don't know what state you're in. I will be present in case you desire that.
Right.
And then she invited me in her house and she had me like read over the obituary, and it was really, it seemed helpful.
Mhm.
And yeah, I think that's a lesson that I kind of internalized real deeply, is help in whatever way seems most natural to you.
Yes.
Bringing a friend a plant seems natural to me.
Yeah. And that's beautiful.
Mhm.
Yeah.
Sometimes just showing up
Mm-hmm.
and just being like, hi, I don't know what you need from me, but I love you and I'm here for you in whatever capacity
And that's
you might
perfect
need me.
words. Yes. Perfect.
Like if you just need me to sit over in the chair and just be here for you if you need something, like I will just be over here in your presence until you need something or something, you know what I mean?
That's perfect. And that's all us as grievers who have experienced like a death or, you know, even like with your, you know, dad having a stroke, but that's all we want. And that's, you know, what we're trying to change because you can't fix it. You know, you can't bring that person back. You can't take that stroke away. You can't, you just can't. And, you know, and then if your friend if she had said, well, I'm really just not up for visitors. Okay, I'll leave the plant right here.
Absolutely.
Right.
1000%.
Yes. And you walk away just knowing you've done what you can do today, you know, and that's the biggest thing. And that's always something we all say in the grief community as well, is like, instead of saying, how are you doing? Say, how are you doing today? Because every day is different.
Oh,
today
so
I could be
different.
Phenomenal. Tomorrow I could be a train wreck.
Yeah.
Right.
Yeah.
Absolutely.
I find that I can be okay for like months at a time, and then all of a sudden it just hits me again. Like, for example, my neighbor next door had his dad over helping with yard work, and my husband and I were just chilling out on our deck, and I turned to him and I was like, remember when my dad helped with yard work? And then like I just broke.
Triggers.
Like,
there's all those triggers.
God.
Yes.
And like, I'll be honest, I was not prepared for it at the time, so I shoved my feelings way deep down. Like, all the times I tell you guys not to do that and to feel your feelings in the moment, I couldn't allow myself to do that because it was too scary. And so that was a few days ago as of filming this. And then last night I was like, okay, I am going to give myself space to feel those feelings that I shoved down. Like, so I turned on some like nice music that makes me feel loved, and I laid in bed with a box of Kleenexes, and I just let myself cry.
Awesome. Yes, that's perfect. That's the biggest thing is grief triggers. They happen, and they happen out of the blue. You don't know when, where. Sometimes you don't even know why. Until you have to process it. And then the perfect thing to do is just be. And I've always had a friend, like if I had the worst day or just having a bad day, she'd be like, okay, I'm going to let you have this one day, but you know what? Tomorrow you're going to wake up and we're going to, you know, we're going to move through this, you know, and we're going to move through this. But I'm going to give you just one day to just cry all day, stay in bed if you want to, do whatever you have to do. And, you know, those are just kind of the most helpful things you can do for yourself.
Absolutely.
Yes.
When I would say even don't like marry yourselves to conventional, like, crying in bed motifs either. When my dad first had his stroke, I could not, there was a night where I just couldn't do anything. And like, I just was crying on the kitchen floor because that's where I was when it hit me. And my husband set this giant like jar of rice in front of me, like our big rice jar. And I was like, what is this? And he was like, throw it. And I was like, what are you talking about? Like, I can't throw it. That's messy. I can't make a mess. And he was like, we can clean it up. So I just threw fistfuls of rice around my kitchen.
That.
And
I
it
love
like
that so much.
It just was full of the noise of like it rattling off of everything because it was ricocheting everywhere, and it just was fistful after fistful. And I felt so much better after doing that because it allowed me to express what like I couldn't find even words for.
That's beautiful. Good job, Carrie.
So, oh my God, my husband's fucking amazing.
Are you still finding rice?
I mean, we haven't moved our baking table, and I imagine there's a lot still behind it.
But that's okay because it's just dried rice.
Right?
It's totally fine.
Exactly.
That's beautiful.
Yeah, that really is.
So
I love
much.
that too. You know, that's sometimes you have so much anger in you, and sometimes you know you're like, I am not an angry person. Why am I feeling this anger? Because I don't feel anger, you know. And that's one of the things. Are just like, you know, throw things, break things, do it. Just go out and do that. And that releases so much emotion.
Oh, absolutely.
And that's what I have. And I don't mean to physically harm people ever, but one of my cards is, you know, the next person that says something, everything happens for a reason, I'll throat punch them for you. You know, that's one of the cards, because it's just like, you know, as good as intentions most people have, they say stupid shit.
Yeah.
And
Yeah.
you know, they just do. And, you know, sometimes they may need a throat punch. I mean,
Right.
I'm not promoting violence at all.
Right,
But
right.
it's just kind of, if I could give that card to my friend, she
If you can
or
make
he
her
will,
laugh.
yes, she'll
Yes,
just be like,
yes.
thank you, yes. Because
And really hearing that and hearing that and hearing that after you lose someone,
Yeah.
that is just, that hurts.
yeah,
That
it really
hurts.
does. Yes.
It
Yeah,
really
it kind of
does.
gets tiring to hear the same thing over and over again.
Everything happens for a reason.
Yes.
Yeah. Well, that's a hurtful sentiment. Really.
It can be.
It can
Yes.
be.
Yeah. Yeah.
I think I found like a certain level of peace with that phrase. I absolutely.
But in that
understand how
moment
can
when
be
you
so
are
hurtful.
sitting
when
in your
it's so
grief,
raw,
yeah.
it's
You know,
unhelpful.
Even for me today, honestly, you know, and I know it's different circumstances, but you know, like with my son dying, you know, he was 1 year old when he died. He died in his sleep, and he had an undetected heart defect that we weren't aware of. And, you know, people in the beginning and months later were always saying, well, you know, God has a reason. There's a reason. Well,
Oh my
what the heck is the reason? You know,
Yeah.
why would God want my 1 year old son to die? You know, why would he have to be taken from us? You know?
Right.
And so that was, I've never accepted that yet. You know, like there is no reason that a child should die, you know,
Right.
and at such a young age, in my opinion. And that's just a belief I have. And I just haven't gotten to that point of there is a reason. Because what
Right.
is the reason?
Totally.
I haven't
Yeah.
learned it yet.
Yeah.
And I probably never will until the day I die.
I so understand that. And it can be, what a beautiful example of like how people can be in their own stage of understanding, because that phrase can be incredibly triggering and
Yes.
offensive to many people.
Yeah.
And I absolutely understand that.
Yes.
For sure.
For sure. Yes.
Absolutely.
Mm-hmm.
I did want to mention too that it was when the day that we met you was
So cold.
so cold. It was
very cold.
It was the first day that we were
Out and about.
promoting the podcast
Mm-hmm.
at her company.
Mhm.
And it was the probably 12 hours after my dog Piper had passed away.
Mm-hmm.
And Kayla was like, I can do this solo. Like, you can.
Whatever you need.
Yeah, whatever you need. Like, I got you. Because, like, I was obviously an emotional hot mess. And had told the kids that night. We had just, like, my partner had to take Piper in, and, like, I had just taken a bunch of her little beautiful nose prints
Aw.
before he had taken her out. And while we were there getting set up, it was so cold in April, right?
Mm-hmm.
Yeah.
And it had started snowing just a little bit. And like, I just started bawling because I was like, oh my gosh, it's Piper. Like, this is the universe, and this is Piper telling me, like, it's good. I'm good. Like, I'm all good. Because Piper was such a snow puppy. Like, that was her. Nothing made Piper food. Besides food, nothing made Piper happier than frolicking in the snow. Like, and it was just like about 2 minutes of just like real light, little wispy flurries. And I was just like, I just had my moment, and I sobbed for a couple seconds or a couple minutes, and I was just like, and then I felt like a whole lot more at peace with it. And then we met you, and I was like, wow, this is
signs. Good
yes,
signs.
lots of signs happening.
I love the
yes.
signs.
Yes.
Yeah. Maybe that's a little the snowflakes, or maybe her little puppy party that she was having.
Yeah.
That's what I always say when it snows, or if it rains on any of my, you know, my people's, you know, anniversaries. I'm just like, well, they must be having one heck of a party. You know, out there.
Yep.
Totally.
Yeah.
So.
Yeah. Well, that's sweet. Yeah. I think those are beautiful signs, and they honestly bring the peace to everybody, you know, or your person and whoever you're grieving, or the animal even, you know, that's, I mean, pet losses, those pets are our people
Oh,
too,
yes,
you know,
for
whether
sure.
people want to accept that or not.
Right.
Because there's some
Yes.
people that are like, oh my gosh, you know, just, you know, get
Mhm.
over it. And
Yeah.
I'm just like,
No
how can you even
way.
say that, you know?
Right. Yeah.
Yeah, I mean, our pets are people. I do have pet loss cards as well.
Yes.
So
I
Yes.
love that.
Yes.
Because this picture right here is of my sweet little nugget who passed away in August.
Oh,
Yeah.
So
yes.
he just hangs out.
Yes, I
Mhm.
love it. I love it. Yeah, dogs are our best friends. I mean, they
Mhm.
ask for nothing
Yes.
ever. They
Yeah.
ask for nothing
Yes.
except
Yes.
for belly rubs and treats
Yes.
Mhm.
and birds.
Yeah. Oh, yes. Yeah.
And
Absolutely.
bunnies. If
And
you're
bunnies,
my dog.
yeah.
Oh, man.
Yeah,
Yeah.
because my sweet little boy, he was with me for 16 years
I love that.
through my abusive relationship,
Mhm.
through me figuring out how to get myself out of that and into a better
Wow.
place.
Mhm.
And so when he died, I was like, oh my God, like my best friend is gone.
Yeah.
Yes.
Yeah.
And it just, like, even now gets
Yes.
me
Yeah.
for sure.
Yeah.
A few months ago, I was with my sister at Home Goods, and I started crying in the middle of the store because there was this like little stuffed llama
Uh-huh.
that you could put in the microwave and heat up. And in his old age, he would get cold. So
Aw.
I was like, oh, I'll get that for Nugget. And I was like, oh, I can't. He's not here
Oh
anymore.
Yeah.
gosh,
And it
yeah,
just,
just
whew.
Yeah.
yeah. Oh, well, yeah, he was with you through everything and
Yeah.
through I mean, he was your comforter through the darkest times.
Yeah.
And
Yep.
yes, and that's
Oh,
that's what we need in our friends too, you
Yes.
know.
Yes.
Absolutely.
Yeah. So my sister was real sweet. She like gave me a hug and we just,
Yeah.
strolled on. I've been trying really consciously to let myself feel feelings like in the moment. So
Mhm.
I'm letting myself cry now. I
Good.
let
Yes.
myself cry in
Do.
the Home Goods.
Yes.
Yes.
Like
And do it.
it's
It's cleansing. Tears
It
are
is.
cleansing. They really are.
really
And if you can do that, that's amazing. Some people can't cry at all.
I really had to coach myself into letting myself cry
Mhm.
because I was really afraid of my sadness for a
Mhm.
very long time.
Yeah.
Mhm.
Yeah.
And when you don't feel safe to feel sad, like that's when you shove it down.
Yes.
And one of the humans I know and love was telling me that she will listen to sad songs to help her cry.
Yeah.
And that I think is a really beautiful way to help yourself like feel safe in
Uh-huh.
that like cocoon of sadness
Yes.
that you find yourself in sometimes.
Yeah.
For sure. Yeah. I have well, after our son died, my husband, Jack, he created a plate, well, Garrett died in 2006. So there was not like Spotify and all that stuff back
Right.
then. But,
Yeah.
he created a CD playlist of just songs, and some of them were uplifting, some of them were sad, and we called it the Garrett playlist. And, we would listen to that and we gave it to family and friends. And so after Jack died, I continued on with that. And then Jack died in 2009. And so now I have actually a Spotify playlist and it's called the Garrett and Jack Mix. And
Yeah.
I actually, on my Instagram page, I have a link tree and I have a link to it.
Oh,
And
really?
so there's like 5 hours of music on there.
Wow.
And it's all different songs. But, if people want to go to that and listen to it, or I go to it when I'm having a mood, just like you. And I feel a lot from music,
Yes.
and it's for me, it's healing. And some people it's not, but I can go to that. And like you said, even, I can feel my boys around me, and
Yeah.
so that's what's important to me when I'm down. But music is very healing.
Yes,
Absolutely.
it really is.
For sure can be. I know for sure it is for me.
Mhm.
I do also acknowledge, like you said, that for some people it's a little
Yeah.
not what they're here for, not what they're ready
Exactly.
for.
Yeah. And it takes time. Everything takes time. I mean,
Mhm.
when we talk about things like this that are healing, it may not be for the immediate loss, whether it is,
Right,
I
right.
mean, we're talking months and months, and how can we still show up years and years later? I am my son died in 2006. So, I mean, look how far we are, you know,
Right.
and
Yeah.
then my husband died in 2009 and my brother died in 2009.
Oh,
So
wow.
we, you know, they died 2 months apart. And
Mhm.
so you know, we are, you know, 14 years out from that. So it's, for me, it is easy to talk about and to try to help people. But, you know, you start to move through that, and
Mhm.
time, people don't like to hear time heals all wounds, but time is absolutely healer in my opinion. It just takes time, and you're going to navigate through some ugly waters,
Mhm.
and it's not going to be easy. It's going to be a roller coaster,
Yes.
you know, and that's what's going to happen. And hopefully you get to a point where you can find the music that's healing.
Yes.
Right.
Absolutely.
Yeah, absolutely. So you told us a little bit about the timeline. Do you want to tell us a little bit more about your story specifically?
Yeah, I sure can.
Okay.
Like I said, my son Garrett, he died in 2006. He died 6 days after his first birthday, and he died in his sleep with a very rare undetected heart defect.
Mhm.
Basically, his right coronary artery was kinked, and it always causes sudden death. And it's similar to probably you've heard like maybe people collapsing on a basketball court and just dying. It always causes sudden cardiac death. And so then about a year after our son died, was October, well, September-ish, my husband Jack had traveled a lot for work, and he came home from a business trip, and he basically said, something's wrong with my eye. And I'm like, I don't see anything in there. He's like, there's got to be something in there. I'm like, I don't see anything. So we went back and forth, back and forth. And anyways, he went to the doctor, you know, they didn't see anything, prescribed drops, et cetera, et cetera. Went to an ophthalmologist, and anyways, in October then of 2007, we found out he was diagnosed with ocular melanoma. So he had, you know, a large tumor in his eye, and it had spread. And so it had spread to his liver and his spleen and his brain.
Oh my
And
gosh.
so, you know, and at that time we, you know, we knew that Jack's cancer was terminal. We didn't know how long, you know, he did everything. I mean, Jack never gave up hope.
Right.
Never ever gave up hope for a fight. And our daughter, so at the time that my son died, my daughter Gracie, she was 4. And so then, you know, near a year later, she was 5 when her daddy was diagnosed. And then Jack battled it. He did chemo, he did radiation, he did radiation twice.
Oh, wow.
And, you know, he battled for 16 months. And so then in February of 2009, he lost his battle. And then our daughter was just 6 at the time. So that was basically, you know, just every day I told myself, Angie, you're going to get up every day. Gracie deserves to have a happy life. She deserves to live a fulfilled childhood. And that was my main goal in life. That's what got me up every single day. Because it was not fair for her to not enjoy life or have happy life. Because I had 2 decisions. I could stay in bed all day, become a crappy mom, and, you know, lose everything, or I could get up every morning and raise a daughter and teach her how to live through grief. And that's what we did. And then my brother had been battling a brain tumor for 5 years. And in March, right after my husband died, he basically was starting to have issues again. And he had his 3rd brain surgery to remove the brain tumor. And then he lost his battle in April 2009, exactly 2 months after my husband died.
Oh, wow.
So
That's hard.
it was the darkest period of my life. And, you know, I just, honestly, I felt so alone, and I didn't know, you know, because within our family, everyone is grieving somebody, you know, like everyone lost somebody, you know, in different forms. And so it was just very dark and lonely for me. And I didn't know a lot of times who I was even grieving for. And so that was kind of just muddled our way through, you know, life somehow. I just,
Yeah.
just a lot of, support from friends. And even, I've had friends tell me, they're just like, Angie, we didn't even know how to show up for you. And,
Yeah.
but they're like, they were there.
Yeah.
They were there. And that's what, was the most important thing. And, here we are. And then my sister-in-law, Jack's sister, she died in 2018 to alcoholism. And her biggest thing was she just could not deal with a lot of the losses.
Yeah.
And she had lived in Colorado, so she was away from a lot of it.
Okay.
So I think she felt a lot of guilt and she had a lot of depression towards that. And so, she battled alcoholism for a while, but she lost her battle. It just, I think for her, that was just the easiest way for her to deal with it. And, it's extremely sad because my in-laws, they lost both of their children, their two children. And so, and I'm still very close. And my father-in-law actually just passed away this year. And this, it's not a beautiful story, but it's beautiful in our hearts because he died the same day my husband had died, his son.
Oh, wow.
So 14 years apart, they died,
wow.
Or he died. So, it was just, I think it was just one of those amazing things, that God was there. And that was just, and I kind of joked with my mother-in-law that morning. I was like, well, I said, I guess the guy just kind of made it easy for you. So you didn't have to remember 2 different dates, and my father-in-law had been ill for about 10 years. So, and he was at home and he had 24-hour care and everything. So, the shock of that, but it, was not there. So we were able to make light of just, some of those small things.
Right.
But yeah, just the biggest thing is, through the grief, it was, it was so lonely. And, here I am today and I am happily remarried. Yeah. And my daughter's now 21 years old and she just finished her junior year of college.
Oh, good for her.
And so she's, she's thriving and, and I'm happy. And, and my husband, Chance, now he's amazing because he allows me to grieve. He allows me to honor everybody and he supports all that. It's a task to go to the cemetery and clean up that. Yeah. And he goes up there and he brings the shovels, the stuff and everything. And, helps clean up everything. So,
that's beautiful.
That is absolutely beautiful.
And that's what's most important is, refinding love and opening up our hearts and having someone that honors all those feelings.
Yes.
Yeah.
Because the grief doesn't go away. And I feel it's so beautiful when you can find a partner who actively helps you grieve.
Yes.
Like I saw this really cute post on social media a few weeks ago, about this woman who's like, I don't know why you guys are all surprised that I'm helping my boyfriend right now, grieve his ex. Yeah. Of course I'm going to help support him and take care of him.
Right.
And, she was talking about how he had gotten flowers to bring to his ex's grave. And she was like, this woman needs balloons too. So she went out and got balloons. So I think it's so beautiful when you can help yourself to feel open to letting people support you.
Yes.
And I think that's what I love so much about Butterflies and Halos is that you're inviting friends into that support role in a way that feels authentic because they're not saying with deepest sympathy. They're saying this fucking sucks and I love you and I'm here for you.
Yes, 100%. Yeah. Yes, that's exactly what it's all about.
Because as heartbreaking and hard to deal with life as it was when my dad had his stroke, I also get to look back on the ways in which I felt supported.
Right.
And the day that it happened, I didn't want to go to sleep because they had told us that he would be dead the next day, essentially. That he had 24 hours to live. But it turns out that was incorrect.
Exactly.
which is beautiful. But like, I didn't want to go to bed because
Yeah.
I knew that there was a really big chance that I was going to wake up the next day without a dad,
Exactly.
and I couldn't do it.
Yes.
Exactly.
And like, my husband took care of me. We stayed up until like 3 a.m. or
Yeah.
something. And then he was like, I love you so much. We don't have to go to sleep, but we do have to go get in the bed because you need to.
Yeah.
And
Yeah, that's beautiful.
yes. And then when my parents were moving out of their house and downsizing for my
Mhm.
dad for a more accessible house,
Mhm.
like, I sent out one text message to my friends and I was like, can anyone help? Like, because otherwise it's just me and my sister and my mom and like her boyfriend at the time.
Yeah.
Well, I guess my boyfriend at the time too, because we weren't married yet.
Oh, that's right.
I'm like, this is too big of a house for just this few people. And they just showed up.
Yes.
And they worked for like 8 hours to like clear stuff out of my mom's house
Mhm.
and just bring it down to the garage for the
That's
garage
awesome.
sale.
Yes.
And
yes.
it just, while grief sucks and these events that are horrifying happen,
Mhm.
there is also that duality that there is good things happening
Mhm.
then also in how you can let people support you.
Yeah.
Yes.
And like, my friends couldn't have supported me if I didn't tell them that I needed it.
Exactly. Right.
And to be honest with you, remembering back, I didn't even text them. I think I made my husband do it. I was like, will you text my friends? Like, will you take care of
Yes.
this?
Yes.
So you can like start like a chain of delegating.
Yes.
Yes.
You don't have to be the one who delegates when you're going
Exactly.
through the grief.
Right.
You can assign your one person to
Yes.
like delegate to other
Exactly.
people.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah. Our story was so out there because we had a Caring Bridge page for my husband.
Right.
Mhm.
You know, just for family and friends throughout the, United States that, because it's overwhelming to have to text
Oh,
somebody or
yes.
do call people and tell them, okay, this is what we found out, so having that Caring Bridge page was very therapeutic for us. And, and I since have closed that, but I mean, I've made it into a book. So we have it. So we have, all of Jack's writings, what he was feeling,
Oh, wow.
and all that. And then and I carried it on for till about August. So he died in February. And then in August was my last post on his Caring Bridge page. But,
Mhm.
it's crazy. You look back at where you were and some of the things that I had said, and felt. And it's amazing to me how far I've come,
Yes.
and so, but our friends knew how to show up, I think, a little bit because they could read through the Caring Bridge page. Like,
Yes.
this is a really bad day we're having, this is what the doctor said today, or,
Mhm.
we're struggling. We need help with Gracie, without even asking,
Yes.
people would just show up.
Yes.
So that was,
I think that's beautiful.
that was a
Yes.
wonderful platform for us to have.
Mhm.
So kudos to Caring Bridge.
Yeah.
Yeah, I love that. That's
Yes.
beautiful. Because I didn't used to be the type of person who would just show up anyway without
Mhm.
something being told for me to do. You know what
Yeah.
I mean? Like, I would waffle in this place of wanting to do something but being unsure and
Yeah.
not wanting to like impose, but like really wanting to help. And like, I just would, as
Oh.
I've mentioned on the podcast before, between fight, flight, or freeze, I will always pick freeze.
Yeah.
Yes. See, and I'm the fighter. I
Yes.
show up. I dive in to rescue. So,
I have now
Yes.
turned into that person
Yes.
because having gone through that deep like pit of grief, I didn't always know how to articulate what I needed.
Mhm.
So knowing that, I just assume that other people also experience sometimes not knowing
yeah.
how to articulate
Yes.
what they need.
Mhm.
So when our very close family friend lost his sister, we were just like, we're bringing you dinner tonight. And he was like, well, I don't know what's going on, da, 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 da. And I was like, is it okay if we just make this decision for you so you don't have to? And he was like, yes.
Yeah.
And I was like, okay, done, sold, we're
Great.
doing it.
Yeah.
So I love that I'm that person now because I
Yes.
sat in that dark ass
Mhm.
pit, not knowing
Yes.
how to communicate.
Yes.
And
Mhm.
so,
And I think that's what I mean. And this is what's good. If we can all, get together like
Mhm.
this and we can talk about this, and we got to just let people know it's okay. It's
Yeah.
okay to
Mhm.
show up. It's okay. It's okay to acknowledge
Mhm.
bad stuff. It's
Yes.
okay to, and that's so when you didn't have that feeling, but we just got to let people know it's okay. And even, if the person doesn't want to be, if they don't want to be around people, leave it on the front porch.
Absolutely.
Just text them and say, hey, I left, there's a coffee on your front porch, and just know that it's there. Okay. And just go and leave, or, whatever it is. Okay. You have to be deliberate with people too. And you have to say, okay, I'm bringing dinner tonight. I'm not going to stay and talk because I can't, but here it is. And here's the instructions. Or I'm going to be going to the zoo with my kids. I'm going to pick up your daughter at this time. So then you have some time for yourself, or, okay, I'm going to the grocery store. Is there anything specific you need? If you don't know what you need, I'll pick up some essentials and I'll do this. So you just have to be deliberate. And because as a griever and in the moment right away, you can't think and process.
No, you cannot.
So that's why it's important that we can try to teach people to unfreeze themselves.
Yes.
So you're
it's possible, you
guys.
Yes,
it is. You got it.
It so is.
I think that's so important to clearly communicate your intentions and how you can help. And what I've also started doing is putting, like, at the end of a text message, if I'm checking in on someone, I totally understand if you don't have the capacity to reply to this.
Yes.
There's no need. I'm just letting you know I love you.
And I love that. Yes, because that's what needs to be done. And then you have to know that you're probably not going to get a message back.
Right.
Yeah. And that's and I think that's where some people just don't understand. They're like, well, Angie didn't respond back to me. So, okay.
She must not need help.
She must not need help.
Yeah.
And
she must not need help. She must be mad at me.
Or no,
being
she's
pushy.
sitting on the floor in the kitchen throwing rice.
Exactly. Right.
Right.
Yes. And there's no more grandma's fine china left either.
Right.
So yes. And it's true, because you have to know. And that's where we have to teach people that, the griever is going through something so intense and so almost out of body that they don't even know what's happening to themselves from a day to day. They don't even know how to get up and go take a shower,
Right.
And so, yes, if you respond, that's a perfect and beautiful way to respond to somebody in a text and just say, you do not have to respond back to me. I understand. And then as long as you know that and acknowledge that, everything will be okay.
Yeah. Well, and I do that for little things right now, right? Yeah. Like, it doesn't have to be a death per se. I have a friend who's having a difficult pregnancy right now. So, like, when I send her a message, I understand if you don't have the capacity to reply. Like, just kind of validating the sometimes very real inability to communicate that happens when you're going through a hard time sometimes.
Yes, exactly. And even, like, job losses.
Yes.
And I just feel like this is important, just as important, just because of what we're going through as society, like with the economy, that, people are losing their jobs and they can't find jobs. And so, like, how can we show up for that person, without, obviously giving them our bank, but how can we show up for that person? And, they are probably feeling, like they aren't worthy, or they, they don't have, they're self-doubting everything about themselves. And they're, how smart they are, any skills that they have, they're just like, well, I must really not be that good of a seamstress or whatever. I'm just throwing that out there, but just, all this guilt builds up, and then you start to shut down. Right. And then you don't have the ability to go out and look for a job.
Right.
And so we have to acknowledge how we can show up for even people in those situations.
Absolutely.
Because they're grieving. They may have been, I had the perfect job. Why would they get rid of me? You know, why would they do that? And how are we going to show up for them?
Absolutely. Right. Because even when I willingly left my teaching position, I was grieving the loss of, like, that community of people that I got to collaborate with every single day. And for the longest time, I didn't even know I was grieving it. I just knew that, like, I felt, I didn't even have it identified as lonely at the time. I just knew that, like, something was missing somehow and I didn't feel right.
Yes.
And I mean, that's where, if you go to therapy, they can teach you how to identify your emotions.
Yes.
That is key. So there are many many things in life that can make you feel those feelings of loss, including loss of community.
Yes.
For sure.
And for me, it was really delayed. Mine was really delayed because I think I was feeling burnout so much that I just I left.
At first, it was a relief to
that
be on your
I
own.
was just oh.
Yes.
And I just felt that for a while. And then once I started feeling like a human again, then the loneliness, and then the grief, and then I miss the community. I miss the routine even. I miss
the routine is a huge thing.
Yes. I miss feeling so capable every day. A lot of those things.
Oh, what a good
point. That is a very good point.
Yes.
Good job.
I like that one. Even uncovered that for me, but
yeah.
Damn.
I didn't feel that at all. I'm trying to think, did I ever feel capable after someone died? No.
Right. No.
Yeah. It took a long time to feel
capable.
Capable. That's a good one. I like that word.
Oh, thanks.
Look at you.
Hey.
Dropping the diamond nuggets of wisdom.
Exactly.
Yeah.
Yes.
Just over here doing my thing.
Yeah. I mean, I like your thing.
Thanks so much.
I do too. I'm really enjoying your things, girls.
Thanks so much.
Yes.
But yeah, but it took me a long time before I was able to feel those things. And then the shame kicked in because I was like, I'm this far out. Why?
Yes.
Why am I feeling these things now? This is distorted.
Yes.
This can't be right.
Right? Yeah.
I shouldn't be feeling this way, especially now. This late in my departure from my career.
Yeah. Oh, absolutely. And the same can be said for death also. Because I've read in books and I have experienced in my life not being able to access my grief, even though I know it's there.
Yeah.
Right?
Yeah.
I know, I know I love my grandpa. I loved my grandma, right?
Yeah.
But at some point, your grief is sometimes inaccessible to you, even though you know it's there. And do I still have things to deal with my grandma? Probably, because
it keeps coming up.
Yeah.
Ignored it.
And it keeps coming up.
Fine. Yes, I know it does. I understand. So also normalizing the fact that you can't access your grief sometimes. That is also so super normal and so super valid. And if you guys listening or watching are experiencing that is, samesies.
Yeah. The biggest thing is, that's the thing. We're going to grieve forever. A death, we're going to grieve forever, no matter what. That's just, it's going to be something. How it shows up and when it shows up, sometimes with you're talking about with your grandparents or your grandma, you just don't know. But there's going to be a day, I truly believe, that you'll deal with it, and you'll deal with it how you need to. And
absolutely.
There's I've always said this. There's no book. There's no manual in grief. Just like there's no manual when you bring a baby home.
Right.
And I say that all the time.
I mean, lots of people have tried to write books on both of those
exactly.
things. Yes, right? They try.
And
but...
you know what? It doesn't go like that.
No.
They say, you're going to do this, 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 and this. And no. That's not how it went. It went like this.
It's exactly. Because it's so personal.
Yeah.
It is so personal, and it's so different for every single
It really
person.
is. And when we brought our daughter home from the hospital, we looked at each other and what do we do with this thing now?
Yeah.
And it's just they didn't send us home with a manual. Are you supposed to take her out and then start playing with her or feed her, or what are you supposed to do?
Yeah.
Right.
Well, and also to say nothing about the grief you may experience when you have a child, the loss of your single life, right? The loss of your freedom in so many ways.
That's very, very, very true. Yeah. I didn't even think of that one either. Gosh,
I didn't. That one I also did. I didn't realize that one until much later either, because when we had Lily, I was really young. I was just right out of college. But when they come home and they're in that little, Mark calls it the baked potato phase, right? Because they're just they're wrapped up. They don't do anything. They can't roll. They don't move. They just
They're a baked potato.
Yeah,
They're
they
a
are.
baked potato.
I love
You
that.
can set it down anywhere and walk away, and it's going to be right there. when you
Exactly.
walk back. Like it might fuss or make a noise, but it's not going
Yeah.
anywhere.
Yeah.
Not that your baked potatoes do that.
Yeah,
your baked
exactly.
potatoes making noise, that might be.
I mean, that's
They kind of
really
sizzle
problematic.
sometimes.
Yeah,
like,
maybe.
Yeah.
Yeah. Anyways, like they're real easy. They're portable.
Yes.
They right. But once they get a little bit bigger, like 1 year old, that's when you start missing out.
Yeah.
You,
that is so
that's
true.
when you start being like, no, I can't come. My kid has to take a nap at that time. And my kid can't take a nap anywhere I go now.
Mm-hmm.
Like we have to be home. We have to do this. There's more
Yes.
routine. It's not so portable baked potato anymore.
And then yeah, and then you're feeling like
Yeah,
you're missing
you're-
out
yes.
on life. You
Yes.
know,
Yes.
and then you kind of get discouraged. And
Yes.
and then I think that's sometimes where, like arguments happen between spouses,
Mhm.
Sure.
because they're kind of like, well, someone might say, well, I'll go to that barbecue and you
Right.
stay home with
Yeah.
baby.
Like, why do I have to stay?
Yeah.
Well,
I
yeah,
wanna go to the
exactly.
barbecue.
And so then
Yeah.
that's where,
Well, I
yeah.
have to stay home because I have the boobs.
Exactly.
Fine.
Wah, wah.
Yeah, I get it.
Yeah.
And then you compound the guilt for feeling that way on top of
Exactly,
it.
yes.
And then you're just in this.
See,
Yeah.
it really is. And I
Yes.
mean, it's all encompassing. It really is. And what can we do? What can we do? That's where I want to change the narrative around
Yes.
how we
Yes.
talk about losses and how do we get from loss to light again.
Yes,
I
absolutely.
love that. Oh, I love that. From
Because
lost to light again.
That is beautiful. I do love that.
That's
Yes.
From lost to light again.
I love that.
Well, now I'm very much considering changing my YouTube title that I had in my head.
well, if I could tell you, I have a little secret, but I'll have to tell you guys off mic.
Oh, okay. All right.
We're gonna know something you don't know, but probably just for a little while.
Yes, launching July.
Oh, so you guys don't even have to wait that long. You're good.
It's gonna be a sneak peek. You're gonna know soon.
Yeah.
We'll add whatever it is to the description when
Yes.
it's public.
Yeah.
Yeah.
I love that.
Yes.
Yeah, because like my husband and I don't have kids yet / right now. We're still in the stage of speaking about whether or not that's a decision we want to make, because it's a big decision.
Yes.
And those feelings of loss of freedom like really weigh on my heart.
Mhm.
And so I think that's why I'm such a big fan of like telling all of my friends who are becoming mothers now, like, happy to come over because I know that's easier for you.
Exactly.
Like I know that your kid can go for a lie down, you
Yes.
can do all of your feedings. I don't give a shit how your house looks, like that's also fine. And I'll tell people that because sometimes that's all the permission they need to let themselves live again.
Yep. Yes, exactly.
And, yeah.
Like that's one of the biggest things that people do, which is the worst thing to do, is after you lose a child. For example, with my son being 1, well, you can have more kids. When are you going to have more kids? When are you going to have more
he's
kids?
replaceable.
Yeah.
No, that's so sad.
People say that more than you know. And I've been, I know a lot of lost moms and dads, and it's very common. And, my husband, Jack, and I actually started talking about maybe trying to have another child, and that's, but then he was diagnosed with cancer. So it was off the table. And then when I remarried, my current husband, Chance, like he didn't have any kids, he came into this just single and not knowing what he was getting himself into. But anyways, and I was, I was almost 40. And so I was just kind of like, okay, well, if you want to have kids, and he's just, we talked endlessly about it. And the biggest thing was he had said to me, he's like, I think we're okay. Cause his biggest fear was, he's like, I would be devastated if something happened to another one of a child, like another child. So he was thinking that mindset, like, what if, and he goes, I don't want you to ever have to go through that again. I'm like, well, I could still lose Gracie, something tragically, but that was his mindset. He's just like, he just didn't want to. So, but he was aware of the feelings, and the emotions and everything that went around it. So, we just decided, not to have another child. But I have my beautiful daughter, Gracie. So, and, and Chance, he told her from the get-go, I will be the dad figure in your life, but I will never replace your dad because you have a daddy.
I love that.
And
That's beautiful.
but he's like, and he will always be your dad, but I am here as a dad figure for you.
I love that.
I love that.
Yeah.
That's
and
beautiful.
He does a good job. They actually, she FaceTimes him more than me sometimes. It really makes me mad.
Yeah, I bet.
Yeah. So I'm just like, he'll say something like, "Oh, I talked to Gracie." I'm like, "What? I haven't talked to her for a day. Like, she hasn't texted me all day long. You talk to her?" So I get mad. No, not really.
Yeah. My partner, Mark, he and his ex-wife, they lost a baby.
Okay.
Was stillborn. And they had a daughter who was, I think Zoe was 3 or 4 at the time.
So about the same.
And he said the hardest part of that whole process is when he had to go out and tell Zoe that her little brother wasn't going to get to come home.
Yes. Yes.
He
That's
said
hard.
that was the hardest thing of the whole entire process. And they went on to have one more baby. They had Zara about a year later. But I know that grieving Zachary for him has been a challenge.
Yeah.
Absolutely.
For sure.
Yeah.
It is, experiencing all the different losses I've had, from a child to a spouse to a sibling. They're all hard. But losing a part of you, which is my son, is the hardest loss I've had to deal with, and and it's just something that hits me every minute of every day still. And it's, it just, my son would have graduated high school this year.
Oh, wow.
And so it's been an emotional couple months for me, just because, well, like I told you girls earlier, June is the month that's his birthday on June 21st. And then he died on June 27th, a year later. Wow. So, I really try to, I will always honor his memory and all my people's memories, but I try to do stuff. I give away stuff. Like last year, for example, I made these cute little cards with his picture on it and just like in a random act of kindness. And I stuffed envelopes with $20 bills. And we went down the College World Series. And so we would just stand there and I tell my husband, Chance, I'm like, okay, let's pick somebody to give this to, So he'd stand there just scoping people. I was like, I think that person over there, So,
so make her day.
Yeah, exactly. So that's what we would do. So we would go down there and then
no, you're okay.
Basically, so that's what I try to do because that it makes me feel good and it helps me move through the month of June because it is so hard. But, just even like with his graduation, like I didn't know what to do. I wanted to honor him somehow for him. Maybe, he never even went to kindergarten,
right.
So I'm sure people that haven't lost a child, I don't think that they understand. They're probably like, this lady's got to be crazy, but it's my way of honoring him. But I had we still hadn't decided what we were going to do with my father-in-law's money that we had, his memorial money. And so I one night I was having a glass of wine and I had a notebook that my sister-in-law gave me for Christmas that said brilliant ideas while drinking wine.
Yeah.
And I was like, all of a sudden it came to me. I was like, oh my gosh, I just have the most brilliant idea. And Chance is like, oh my gosh, like, here she goes again. Here comes another great idea.
Yes.
Yeah. So I'm like, why don't we give that money to a scholarship to a student and that would be graduating with Garrett in his class, So we live in a small community outside of Omaha here. So I know, and I've lived there my entire life. So I know that he would have went to that school. And so this is like April. So graduation's like in 3 weeks. So I've missed the scholarship application opportunities. I've missed everything, but so I was like, nope. next morning, called the school, got it rolling. And so that's what we were able to do. And
That's amazing.
we went through the DC West Schools Foundation, and they had a list of scholarships. So I was able to read through them, you know, like in one night. I found this perfect kid to give the scholarship to, and he was actually going into the same career that my father-in-law had done his whole entire life.
Oh,
And
wow.
so like, and I'm so
Oh
like,
my
well, this is
gosh.
perfect because I'm like,
Yes.
my father-in-law, he would have loved the idea that we were
Yeah.
doing that
Yes.
for his grandson Garrett, and then in the field that he built his entire career around.
Oh my
I
gosh,
love
the
that.
goosebumps just keep coming.
I know.
Like,
So I have them
they're
too.
not stopping.
Yes.
But
Wow.
so that's, you know, but that's how, I guess, how I cope and move through my grief journey is I keep my people's memories alive consistently. We talk about them.
Yes.
We daily, we talk about them all the time. We do things. We honor them on their anniversaries. We honor them on their birthdays. You know, we do whatever we can. So now I'm just trying to figure out what I'm going to do for Garrett this month. So that's kind of, I'm working on that.
Yeah.
That's so beautiful.
Yes.
I think that's such a great example of that like duality that we were kind of talking about before we hit record about how grief and happiness and joy can coexist at the same time.
1000%.
And you are giving such beautiful examples of how a person can self-source that joy, right? Like you can create opportunities for yourself to feel that joy even while you are also in a pit of grief.
Yes.
Right?
Yes.
And I think that that's really important to highlight that note of empowerment.
Yes.
Because feeling grief can feel so powerless.
Yes.
And if you can know that it's an option to celebrate while you grieve, I think that gives many people permission in a world where previously grief was something you swept under the rug.
Exactly.
And you didn't talk about.
Yes.
And not just an option, but a choice.
A choice.
Yes.
Too.
Yes.
A choice that you can make.
Yes.
Absolutely.
Yes.
And it might not be something big where you have like a scholarship.
Yeah.
That's such a beautiful example. And also I know that that's not necessarily how it's going to look for everyone else. So it might look like planting a tree because your kid loved trees or whatever.
Exactly. Yes.
It can look however it needs to look, essentially. Like
so sorry.
Oh, I was going to say maybe in August to remember my sweet nugget, Toby, maybe I'll buy my dogs a toy that he would have loved, you know?
There you go.
Like,
yes.
So just, it doesn't have to be big. It doesn't have to cost a lot of money. It doesn't have to cost any money.
No.
You could do like a candlelit like little ritual in your backyard. Or
we do the candle lightings all the time.
Yeah.
I have a friend who her daughters go to school with my kiddos, and she lost one of her children too, who was just a little bit older than our kiddos, and they celebrate her birthday every year. And so they just think about like what she might have liked to do and how she might have liked to celebrate her birthday. And then that's what they do kind of as a family. And so like they will go around town and do something fun, or like go to the zoo, or and so it's just kind of like they go and they have like a little birthday celebration, just like
that's beautiful.
We did that with Garrett all the time, like after, well, when it was just Gracie and I, after Jack had died, you know, it seemed like some of the kids movies would come out in the beginning of the summer, you know, like Monsters Inc. or different things. So it always kind of fell in June. And so that's what we would do. We'd like, let's go on Garrett's birthday and go see Monsters Inc. You know, so we're like, cute. For sure he would love Monsters Inc. You know, we're making all this up in his mind, you know, and that's what we would do too. Like even Halloween, you know, sometimes we got a magazine that would have Halloween costumes in it. And so we'd go through it and I'm like, Gracie, what do you think Garrett would be for Halloween this year? You know, and so she's like, oh, I think he would want to be that, you know, and so, you know, and it's remembering them and honoring them, you know, always. And it's can be simple little things.
Yes. And as a person who consistently has to coach herself out of freeze into action,
Yeah.
I would just like to say that anything that you do is better than the 1,000 ideas you've thought of but haven't given yourself permission to do.
Mm-hmm.
Yes.
So however small it needs to be for you to be able to give yourself permission to do the thing,
Mm-hmm.
then do that thing.
Yes.
Because I always feel better when I've done the thing.
Exactly.
I do. I
do.
always feel better when I've
Yeah.
acted, as opposed to thought about 9 different ways that I could act and done nothing.
Exactly.
Like, and I tell myself the same thing when I like leave some of my old teacher friends like happy summer gifts or whatever. Like, this year I left them a Post-it note on a can of LaCroix on their porch.
I love it. Yeah.
Because I knew that I didn't have the capacity to do more than that.
Exactly.
But doing something to me lit up my heart
Yes.
so much more beautifully than doing nothing.
Yes.
Giving for me just fills my bucket. It
Yes.
really does.
Yes.
Yeah, it really, really does.
Mhm.
And that's why, like, even with my cards, you know, like my cards, they aren't all about death. So they're not death cards. They're grief cards. They're not
Mhm.
sympathy cards. I have one sympathy card, but they're for showing up for grief, however grief looks
Mhm.
from month 1 to 10 years later.
Mhm.
Because, you know, it's like I say, how are we going to show up? That's, you know, if you could give a card to a friend,
Mhm.
you know, just send one once a month even, you know. And if I opened my mailbox and I received that when I was going through my grief, I'd just be like, oh, it just brightened my day, you know.
Yeah.
I could have been having the worst day and no one would have ever known, you know.
Mhm.
But if you consciously are thinking about your friend or somebody, you know, like, I'm going to send a card the first day of every month. And, you know, that's, I think that's just some way to honor your friend and your friendship.
That's beautiful.
Mhm.
Well, and we here on the podcast are big fans of snail mail. Like, that is something very close to Ashley's heart.
absolutely.
For sure.
Yes, let's get back to snail mail, people.
Well,
Yes.
So I do a snail mail is part of the subscription service that I have, where I send out the snail mail and the sticker that I design and draw.
Okay.
And like a bookmark or something else that I draw, and a little newsletter, and I decorate the envelope, and I do that all up.
That's
and
amazing.
Yep.
That's
and you can
amazing.
send it to whoever you
Yes.
want. And it's just because we get so much junk mail and so many bills.
Yes,
and
right?
it's just like, it's overwhelming.
It
And
is.
so it's just a little drop of happy.
Yeah, if you open your mailbox and you see
Yes.
something pretty and happy,
Yes.
what are you going to do? You're going to
Yes.
smile.
Or deep and
Yes.
heartfelt,
Yes.
right?
Yes, absolutely.
Yes.
So for those of you guys watching and listening, we will put the link to Angie's Etsy in the description.
Yes.
And then, as always, Ashley's links to her
Yes.
snail mail will be there also.
Yes. I love it. Yes.
Yeah, because I feel like maybe that's the theme of the podcast. Like, just taking whatever little tiny action you can take is the best option to help someone be supported in their grief and to support yourself in your grief.
Yes.
Yes. Well, we are. I have a blog, and I always say, I end it, we're always better together.
Yes.
I love that.
Yes.
That is
I
beautiful.
love that.
Yeah.
Beautiful.
I do.
Yes.
Well, Angie, is there anything else that, like, in your heart you're just like, they need to know this thing before we close things out?
You know, the biggest thing is just give grace. Give grace to the person that's fighting grief, fighting loss. Give grace to yourself for not knowing what to do, you know, and just always just live with grace, because that's how we get through life.
That's beautiful.
Yeah.
I love that.
Yeah.
And for those of you watching and listening, we mentioned a couple times that idea of self-safety and like trying to create a sense of safety for you to be able to take action. So if you are feeling like you want more information on self-safety, I have a few videos over on my Braveheart Open Mind channel that talk about sourcing and creating your own sense of self-safety and different practices that you can do to help to help yourself feel like all of these things that we've talked about are options for you to take action on. Because until you feel safe enough to take action, you'll continue to be like me and freeze. And like me, you can coach yourself out of that freeze and into action.
Yeah.
And that can feel real beautiful too. So my Brave Heart Open Mind channel is linked below as always. And it's under self-safety, so it's easy to find.
Yeah.
Good.
Yeah.
Perfect.
Yeah.
Yes. Well, thank you girls so much for having me.
Thank you for being
yes,
on.
Yes. It's been beautiful.
Yes.
Yay. Thank you so much for sharing your heart and spending your time helping us help others, right? To create that sense of community around such a topic that can feel real heavy.
Yeah.
Yes.
Yeah. For sure. Yes.
Yes.
Well, awesome.
Yeah.
Yay.
Yay.
Thank
All
you.
right. Well, beautiful humans watching and listening, we love you so fucking much.
So much.
Yes, so much. Okay.
Love you. Bye.